So being from the generation that allowed people like Perez Hilton to exist, and I remember it like yesterday, the first time I ever came across his website. I think it was after reading a really, really small article on him. It was around 2005 or 2006. I can't remember exactly. I read a tiny, tiny article in him in the guide in the Guardian. You know, do you remember this the small booklet you used to get in the Guardian on a Saturday? There was a tiny article written, just like around 200 words, saying, do you know this guy? Have you heard of him? He's a new sensation. He's someone who's basically has taken celebrity gossip from sort of being very restrained, very prim and proper to really honest. And actually, this particular write up on him wasn't that negative. It was actually saying, oh, look at this guy. Look how he's presenting a really exciting way of thinking about gossip, about celebrity gossip. So, as I said, the first time I ever came across him was through that, and I read his blog, or if you want to call it blog or website. It was actually presented as blog around then. It must have been in 2006. Must have been about 20 years ago. I read it religiously, did not agree with the majority of the stuff, but I admit that I read it religiously. The first time I ever heard about Lady Gaga was on Perez Hilton's website. Not lying, and a ton of other really sort of high, really well known early 2000s pop pop stars were I kind of discovered them through that. We allowed Paris Hilton to become who he was. We allowed that kind of behavior to go on. I actually also remember just before Perez Hilton, we did have Heat. Heat, I bought. I remember buying the very first edition of Heat magazine. Now, and I know people who are involved with it, being in the sort of press. Being a journalist, I know I'm really good friends with people who were involved with the early days of Heat magazine, where that kind of culture of calling out people for their looks, or calling out people for the how they dressed, and calling it celebrity gossip became a kind of everyday thing. However, with Perez is that he took it too far. Eventually, he kind of went on to become this kind of person who made or broke you, and we allowed him to do that. And then when it came for him to be pulled down, he was pulled down by the people who put him up there. I mean, he is the origin of cancel culture, and eventually got cancelled by it. And then I think anyone and everyone who's come on here in the last couple of days after what happened, and I would spare you the details of his downfall and the horrific stuff that has happened to him, and that he's done to himself. The majority of people who've come on here sort of talking about him are really guilty of the same treatment. I mean, they've done the same. The whole snark culture comes from that kind of era of celebrity gossip. So I don't know, if nobody's perfect, and I find that it's actually quite ironic that someone like him is being criticized for doing all of those things that he did in the early days, that he's apologized for, and so on. But then people are incapable of admitting that they were part of that thing. And even later, even the younger generation, like Gen Z social media users, are guilty of the same, even if they don't think they are, because pulling apart people has become a sport online. It's an online sport to sort of be pulling people pulling people's personality online, and just sort of turning them into a monster. But anyone can do that. If we've now been online for long enough for people who are 20, 25, have grown up with social media. What you were tweeting or what you were sharing on social media 20 years ago can come back and haunt you, and that is because nobody is perfect. Not a single person is perfect. In a way, I'm kind of like, I am an early adopter of social media. However, I'm so glad I didn't grow up on social media. I'm so glad I was already fully formed as a human being when social media became really, prevalent. Yeah, it's just some thoughts that I kind of like, I have interacted with Perez many times online, and we've exchanged emails throughout the years. So I do feel bad, mostly feel bad for his kids. He's got three children, all, very, very, still very young. And I wish him all the best, and I hope he can recover. I don't think he will ever come back to social media, to be honest with you. I don't think he will ever recover from this. And, yeah, it's very sad. It's a very sad situation.